So this is not a review. This is a story of how Dark Souls made me feel like games hadn't made me feel in years. Uh, I bought Dark Souls Remastered in 2020 and I had no idea what it was about. So as a person who took a break from video games for around 7 years, I got back into gaming after seeing the Resident Evil 2 remake on PS4 and Xbox One. I remember that I saw the trailers and I was so excited because when I was younger, Resident Evil was possibly my favorite series. And I saw the game and I just had to get it. So it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I played through all the different scenarios a bunch of times. Leon A, Claire B, Claire A, Leon B, standard, hardcore, going through the game under 3 hours with only 3 saves, all that jazz. I did it. And, I did it because despite the repetitiveness, the gameplay, the puzzles, and the shooting were just so tight that it took me a while to actually get bored with the game. It reminded me of why I used to play video games as a kid, and it triggered my dopamine receptors in the way that everyone who has enjoyed video games knows all too well. So, eventually I said, I want to play other games, so I turned to some of the critically acclaimed games on the system. God of War, The Last of Us Remastered, Horizon Zero Dawn. I played through these games and they were all great, but they were missing something. They just didn't have that special kick. And that's when I realized that, or at least I think, there is like a spectrum in gaming. So at one end, you have gamers who enjoy gaming for storytelling and narrative. And at the other end, there are those who primarily value gameplay over a good story. Now, I am not a toxic person. I understand that there are many people who strongly value narrative over gameplay, and I can understand this sentiment. An amazing story that that moves you and leaves you thinking long after you have finished a game is made all the more impactful when you are the one controlling the protagonist in the story. So, I, however, am a more simple-minded person. So, while I love it when games have a great story, I ultimately won't enjoy a game if I feel that the gameplay is not up to par. So, I'm firmly in the gameplay is king side of the spectrum. So, one of my favorite games of all time is Resident Evil 4. My love for that game made me believe that I was more suited towards linear games. And I think that holds true for the most part. It's a great game for me because the story is not so serious.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
As a matter of fact, it's ridiculous, but it's entertaining. But most of all, the gameplay is top-notch. I chased this high with modern games. But, I just didn't enjoy the Gods of War, The Last of Us. I just didn't enjoy them very much, even though they do follow a linear structure. And while they have a similar progression to Resident Evil 4, particularly The Last of Us, the core gameplay mechanics and combat, they just don't feel as satisfying to me. Even though I did enjoy the top-notch presentation. And that's interesting with The Last of Us, because The Last of Us particularly is very similar to Resident Evil 4, but for some reason it just didn't do it for me. I realized that what really gets my blood pumping is the combat and progression. So, what I was really enjoying when I played Resident Evil 4 was the extra crispy shooting and the combat mechanics. Whether the progression is linear or not so linear seems to be indifferent to me if the core combat is tight and the progression feels rewarding. Dark Souls has both of these elements. I started to play Dark Souls only because of how often I saw it come up when people talked about great games. The only thing I knew when I started it was that it was known for being difficult. So I had a rough start in Lordran. I went straight to the catacombs and I got my ass cheeks handed to me by the skeletons. But eventually I found my way to the Undead Church and I just got hooked on the game. And I won't go on for ages on what makes this game great, because this is a game that has been discussed by everyone and their mother already. I will say that gameplay wise, this game triggers my dopamine receptors because of how engaged my motor systems are when I'm playing it. So when exploring an unknown area or facing a tough boss, I can't be passively sitting in my chair, slouched back, and kind of just going through the motions. I'm sitting up, my blood is pumping, and my focus is laser sharp, because it has to be in order for me to triumph. Because I have to triumph in order to get that sense of accomplishment, which seems to not feel as well earned in other games. I don't remember ever experiencing this at all with any of the games that I've played ever. I finished the game and I had no idea what had happened. I am not a perceptive person. So like many others, I began watching lore videos and some of the great user-created content that helped explain to me what had happened in the story. And once I realized how much was actually going on with the NPC quest lines and how deep you had to dig to actually realize what was going on with some of these characters, I gained an even greater appreciation for this game. You can rest assured that my mind was blown away when I figured out what was going on with Petrus of Thorland. And spoiler alert, the dude is no saint, okay? So, that's what makes this game so special. In regards to the spectrum that I mentioned earlier, this game seemingly caters to fans on both ends. So while I appreciate the carefully crafted lore and world building, and I'm trying to be more perceptive of what is going on now that I'm playing Dark Souls 2, I can't put my controller down because of how fun the game feels in my hands. Yet at the same time, this game also caters to the fans who want to leave no stone unturned and ponder the significance of the ambiguous story elements that are left open to interpretation in regards to their significance and what they mean. Fans do this because it's fun, because the world of Lordran is interesting if you take the time to understand it. And if you didn't, like me, well, you're still going to enjoy this game because of how fun the core gameplay is. So that is why I'm playing Dark Souls 2 right now, and that is why I intend to play through all of the Souls games. The high that I get with these games is unparalleled to anything that I've ever experienced with gaming. And I felt so strongly about this that I felt the need to tell others with this video. So yeah, these are just some quick thoughts on what makes this game special to me. When I'm doing my playthroughs, I feel like I'm not very articulate and I have a hard time expressing myself. So that's why I felt the need to kind of sit down and just make this video and just express myself better. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Check out my ongoing Dark Souls 2 series if you want to see me struggle through Drank Lake. That is all. I will see you guys in the next video. So, take care.